Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to look at Voyant tools to see how to use it for textual analysis and to get your visualization ready for this week's assignment. Now, I know you've looked at this already because you had to make sure when you're choosing a text to analyze, you had to make sure that it would work in Voyant. But let's just start from the beginning to look at how to use this tool. So first, you will need to navigate to voyant-tools.org. And depending on the kind of tool you'll have, you may be clicking a button from Redux to send it straight to Voyant. You may be clicking the URL and copying it and pasting this box, or you might be choosing one of the corpora that is available here. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click Open, and you can choose a corpus, and I'm going to choose Austen's novels. So again, there's different ways. Click that button on Redux, or copy the URL into the add text area, or you can choose a corpus that's already provided, whether it's Shakespeare's plays, Austen's novels, or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'm going to go with Austen's novels. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click Open. And it's going to get the corpus ready. So before we look into ways to use these tools, let's take a tour of Voyant. What you'll see is these different panels that have preloaded tools in them. And notice that each one also has a series of other tools loaded in. These are not your only options. You can put different tools in here. I'll show you how to do that, but they can be a good starting point to kind of get an idea of the text. And so you have a word cloud that has the most frequently used words. And I know those can seem a little outdated. Who uses word clouds anymore? But it'd be kind of useful just to see, like, oh, what's the most frequently used word? Why does this author use this word a lot? Then you'll see a reader that lets you get at the different text so you can see things in context. Because remember, distant reading and close reading, they're always combined. They're always in dialogue with one another. And so if I find something in a tool and a visualization that I really want to look more at, then maybe I should look at it in context. Then you'll see trends, which shows how a word or phrase operates throughout the text as a whole. And in this case, we have multiple texts. And then down here, we have the summary tool. That can be very useful if you have multiple texts. If you have a single text, it's still nice to see the document length, the vocabulary density, what the distinctive words are. That's great, but you can kind of get that idea from other tools, such as the word cloud. But if you have multiple books, then it's very useful to see, okay, Emma's the largest text, Lady Susan's the smallest text, and go from there. Then you also see what's the most common word in all of them. Maybe I want to think about how is persuasion different from Pride and Prejudice, or something like that. But then again, remember I said distant reading, close reading are always in dialogue. Then you have context. Maybe I'm looking at a certain word, Mr., and saying what's context is it in? How does it go through the text over the time of reading them? So that's what you already have in front of you just by opening up a text. But all these can be worked with and changed. And so first I might say, you know what, Mister, what does that really tell me? I mean, this is a novel or a set of novels that's going to have Mr., Miss, and said all throughout. Maybe I want to remove those, and those can be called stop words. So if you hover over any of these tools, you'll see all these different possibilities here, these different buttons. And this one right here that says define options, you can click that in any tool. And we have these stop words here. So stop words are words that you tell the machine, don't do your analysis with this word, exclude it from the analysis. And that's a very important interpretive decision that you make. And that's why in this assignment, I ask you to sort of unveil that, uncover that, say, what do you do? What stop words do you put in? What choices do you make? Because whether we're doing a close reading or a distant reading, we're engaged in something called hermeneutics or interpretation. We are making decisions as human persons that guide the machine to give its output to us, which we then interpret further. So in my case, I'm thinking I don't need to see said. It's a novel. I know things were said. I'm going to edit this list. And see, there's already some in there. This is how Voyant's designed. But I want to click enter, and I'm going to, well, I don't want said. I do not want Mr. or Miss or Mrs. And we'll start this. Maybe I'll start taking out names like Eleanor and Emma and things like that. But we'll see how it goes. Then I'm going to save those, and you're going to watch it change once I confirm. See, now we have a different picture. We see things like good coming up, or no, or think. And there's lots of ways, especially when you're thinking about if you've known any of the text, you can think about, okay, there's almost this sort of drawing room aspect to Austen's novels. Like you're sitting with the speaker and watching maybe a party happening, and she's telling you what's really happening through irony. And I might say, oh, maybe I want to remove Emma because maybe I don't want to think about that particular text and I don't want to think about proper names. See, Fana, Eleanor, Emma, those things are showing up in there. Or maybe I'll think, well, how's time working? And again, once I click these after stop words are in, these interact. See, now trends is showing me how that's working across that. And so that's a very important question to ask yourself. What stop words do I want? Because here's another way to look at it. Often, like I said before, we'll put in stop words like the basic words that we think don't give us much information. But some scholars will do the exact opposite. They'll take out all other words and keep in only the stop words. Things like said, you, your, Mr., Miss, Ms., all those kind of things that we normally don't look at. Then they see what emerges. What do I see about the text? How is it operating? Now that you've seen an example of working with what we already have in front of us, why don't we try seeing what we can do with these particular texts? So for those of you who are selecting text that you've never seen before, that's great. This tool is great for that because you can say, oh, what's going on here? What's the most common words? What can I figure out? How can I dive into the reader and get some idea of context? But let's say you have a text that you've already worked with. Let's say you upload it yourself, or one of these generic canonical texts is one you've read before in high school. Then great. See if there's something that pops out with you, something you can think about. So here's something that I want to know about. There's a line of research that says, you know what? Austen uses intensifiers a lot, words like much and very. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to reset this because sometimes you add in words, it gets a little confused. And I'm going to type in much. And notice how it has one with an asterisk and one without. And the one with the asterisk, that means I want to have every version of this. And but the that might actually be an OCR issue though. But usually this means different versions of it. So if I say I have the word like think and I put an asterisk by it, I'll get thinks as well. So there's different ways to, or if I put no, I'll get known as well. If you're ever confused by this, see that little question mark, hover over that, and it'll show you all the different things you can do to try to figure out whether I want things that match term that start with it or end with it or things like that. Then I'll hit enter. And now I'm seeing much over the course of her books. And by the way, a little pro tip there. Notice how each one's named by the year it came out. If you do something like that, where then Voyant can order it chronologically. When I was showing you the Lord of the Rings ones, I had to change them to have like 1, 2, and 3 in front of them to make sure that Fellowship was first, Two Towers was second, and Return of the King was last. So if you name your different corpus, the different text you want to use, if you name it in a way with like a number that can show which order you want to be in, and dates can be very useful for that, then you'll get them in that order. So we're seeing Austen's work over publishing time. Another intensifier we can add is vary. And this one that has a star in there, but I don't really need it because there's not going to be other versions of it. And so then we see that these are happening a lot. And holy Fritz, it's happening so much in Emma. Why might that be? So what the research says is these intensifiers, we're saying very and much, and they just kind of keep going, that sometimes that could be indication of irony, that the speaker is showing you that what we're trying to say is very much or is, or we're trying to put to that intensifier isn't really true. The idea of protesting too much. And it happens a lot in Emma because that's especially the case where she really just does not know herself and her first impressions of people just isn't correct. And so, but again, that's where you need kind of a close reading. So if you haven't read Emma, you might be thinking, what is he talking about? So that's why you can use this for distant reading for texts you've never read and discover patterns. And you can also use this for texts you have read and either confirm theories you have or discover things you could not have noticed on your own. So that's a way to use trends. Now, let's say we want to work with this and have a totally different tool because we have these tools, but we have other tools too. So I hover up here and maybe I want the same words, but different tool. If I click on this icon, it's like a window, I can choose other tools. And so you can see corpus tools. Corpus, like that means body. It's working the text itself. Document tools, maybe I want to look at particular ones. Visualization tools. So I can say, there's this data I have, it's unstructured data of all the text. How can I visualize it in different ways? And that's what I want to look at. So since I've noticed that there's this trend where these words are used a lot and compared to other authors used a lot. So if we added in another book, maybe from the same time period, and looked for these same words, I bet Austin would have very much used a lot more. But I want to bring in something called micro search. Because so what I did with trends is I discovered something. But kind of the theme of this class is we use one tool to discover something, maybe we use another tool to show something. So what this does is it visualizes the text and highlights little areas where the word shows up. When I changed to a different tool, it took the main word from this other tool. So I need to go back to my own analysis. I want to put in much, and I want to put in very. There we go. And look how it's really showing Philip and Emma. Now, this may not be as useful for me to analyze it and come to a conclusion. That's going back between distant reading, close reading. But this could be useful for showing someone, look how much, oh, look, I use intensifier too. Look how much this is used. Look how much Emma uses the words much and very, and then use it as a way to show, to display what I'm doing. Not a requirement for this particular assignment. You go ahead and just find the one that you're most interested in and go with it. But think about that throughout the class, that there's this theme of maybe one tool is perfect for analyzing and working my research question, and another tool might work for saying to others, here's my insight. So let's say this is one that I'm really excited about and I want to share it with others. How do I do that? So I go up to these tools again and see the ones like a pop-out window. That's for exporting. Go ahead and click that. And there are different ideas. You can export a URL, which can be useful if you want to share with someone, but we want to export a visualization because remember, visualization is how you take your data, whether structured or unstructured. We're using unstructured data because it's a text. Structured data is in a grid format like an Excel or a CSV file. So we want to visualize this data. We have this data of how often the words, the intensifiers, much and very are used in Jane Austen's novels. So we want to have an image of that. So go down here, click that downward arrow so it opens it up, and click that radio button to export a PNG image. That's pretty good to be a PNG instead of JPEG. There's going to be less loss. It's going to be a better image. And you don't really have to worry about scaling for this. You can leave that as it is and go and click export. So this is where it gets kind of weird. So you have this HTML code here that can also show it, but for this class, you're going to want to import an image into your post. So I know it looks weird. That's a thumbnail, but once you try to save it, it really will be the full-size image. So you're going to right-click it, click Save Image As, and then you'll go through the prompts that you normally see on your device when you're saving an image from online. Once you have that, you're ready to post it into the class. And let's take a look at that. So now we're in the class. I just want to point out again what the expectations are. Once you have that visualization, you've exported it, you're going to include that in your post so your classmates can see it. Then I want to make sure that I emphasize what you're going to do. So first, explain what text or text this visualization comes from. So I would say this comes from Jane Austen's works because someone who knows it might be, okay, there's love and friendship, there's Sense and Sensibility, there's Pride and Prejudice, but that person might be love, ladies, what's going on here? So especially if you're working with a non-canonical text where you discover something exciting, make sure to just tell your classmates where it's from. Now, next you want to go through and explain your process of working with the text. What stop words did you add? What words and visualizations did you explore before coming to this one? So for mine, I would talk about how I took out Mr. instead and things like that because these are novels where it doesn't give me much information. And so I made that interpretive choice. And then I would say how I actually started with trends when I was looking at my words and looking at variant months, looking at intensifiers, and then thought, you know, the trend shows me a lot about this, but I kind of like how I'm visualizing here to get across my interpretation of it. Then you want to analyze. So once you talk about the process, where like in my case, saying like I went from trends to micro search, you want to analyze like what are you interpreting from this visualization? What's interesting about it? What does it suggest? Then end with a question you still have about the text. They could explore more distant reading or with a close reading later. Because remember, distant reading and close reading have to talk to each other. And part of why you're ending with this question is because this is not the end of this assignment sequence. Next, you're going to use Spiral notebooks to share your insights with others.